Hello, everyone, and welcome to the As Seen on TV podcast for The Originals, Season 1, Episode 1, Always and Forever. I'm your host, Dom, and with me is my co-host, Omikins.
Ew.
So, this episode was actually shown 3 separate times, each very slightly different edits. The very first time was in the backdoor episode of the Vampire Diaries, which was episode 20 of Season 4 last season. Then there was the director's cut that was released online about a week to 2 weeks ago. And then the original airing that you guys hopefully all saw on TV. In both the backdoor pilot and the director's cut, the story is actually told from Klaus's point of view. And it goes into much more of a background of the witches and their role involved in all of this. But the episode that actually aired as the first episode of the series was told from Elijah's point of view. So, Umi, we had discussed prior to the airing of this show how they would possibly dress the original's backstory without retelling what we already kind of knew about them from the Vampire Diaries, and keeping new viewers to the series up to speed with their background without feeling like they had to watch the other show. How do you think they did? Did they do a good job of this?
In the most part, I think they covered it pretty well. But, there are a few things that they could have included. But, as a whole, the show worked out really well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I actually preferred it to the Vampire Diaries premiere for this season, but that's just me, and that's a whole nother thing. But so in the opening scene, we have actor Nathaniel Bucelich, who played Cole in the Vampire Diaries. He makes a very, very brief appearance, daggered in a coffin, and for the actor to reprise, if I could speak correctly, his role, and for such a minor scene, I'm kind of thinking we're gonna see a lot more of Cole in flashbacks. But what do you think about the possibility that they may actually find some way to resurrect that character?
Maybe near the end of the season, because right now they're kind of preoccupied with other things. I don't think resurrecting their little brother is going to happen anytime soon.
So what did you think about that whole opening scene with them on the ship to begin with? I thought that was kind of a cool way to introduce them to New Orleans.
It was probably the only way to introduce them to New Orleans because, they're originally from Europe, so the only way they could get there was from a boat, so...
I just like that whole scene in general. I thought it was kind of cool. It was very dark.
It was dark, yeah.
So, so we move to present day, and we see Elijah talking to Camille. In the director's cut and the backdoor pilot, Camille played a much larger role. She was much more involved, and she even seemed like she could potentially be a love interest for Klaus. It seems that they moved away from that storyline. Why do you think that is?
I don't think Klaus could love anything right at this moment. So I think they kind of thought that too, that, him being gruesome and all over the place and vicious is more of a cool storyline than him getting all sappy and falling in love with some psychological retarded human.
Wow. Yeah, so...
I don't like her.
So, I think they kind of steer away from that because they wanted to set up more of Haley and Klaus, if anything, and we know that Klaus still has feelings for Caroline from Vampire Diaries, but that's probably not going to be something that carries over anytime soon. There's a possibility Camille may be trying to set something up with Elijah. They may be trying to set something up with Elijah. I don't even know with that. But definitely I don't think it worked too well with Klaus.
No.
But so we move to Jane Ann and her younger sister Sophie, who are actually more involved in the other two versions, where in the other two they showed you exactly what had happened with Jane Ann, the spell she cast, exactly how she was killed, and why do you think they shifted away from the witches in this particular version?
It's not really about the witches anymore. From Klaus's point of view, they were the ones that were messing with him, and he wanted to get down to it. But being that the originals was not from his point of view. The witches were kind of there, but um, they weren't the focus of the episode. It was really Elijah trying to tie down his brother, make sure he wasn't going to get into trouble, get hurt, or anything like that.
Right. I kind of missed from the earlier version where they took the witches and they actually led Haley astray, send her out into the swamp out of nowhere, and then ambushed her to capture her. I thought that scene was really cool. I wish they could have fit that in somewhere, but as you said, the story really wasn't about the witches. That may be something that we get to see through like a little flashback or something at some point, just like a memory Haley's having or something. It would be kind of cool if they did that. But so after Jane Ann's killed, her younger sister Sophie appears to get this confidence boost out of nowhere. It seems like she thinks she has all the cards, but as we both know, Klaus himself is a complete wild card. Do you think Sophie's actually prepared to deal with Klaus?
I don't think she knows at all what she's getting into. She thinks she knows, but no, there's no way.
No, because even with Klaus, you don't have just Klaus.
No.
You know that even though Rebecca, or his sister, hates him, there's the family blood bond there. So you're not just dealing with Klaus. You're dealing with Rebecca, and with them comes Elijah. Like, you have the whole original family to deal with. You're not dealing with one. You're dealing with all of them.
And, Klaus also has that token card where he can go make a hybrid army.
Very true.
So, I mean, Sophie she's taking on way too much. She has no idea what she's getting into. And she thinks she has things under control because she has a couple things that he doesn't really give a crap about anyways, but she thinks that he does.
Right. So, another thing that I thought was really interesting is it was kind of revealed that vampires cannot cross onto sacred grounds, which is something that we have not seen from the Vampire Diaries. And in the Vampire Diaries, they actually established that crosses are nothing more than decorative and holy water is drinkable. But what makes these so-called sacred grounds seem to follow traditional vampire lore?
To be honest, I think that it has to do with the witches casting a spell years ago, which makes it like a sanctuary, like a house. So it's spellbound somehow. So vampires can only enter if they're invited in. Simple as that.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. I can definitely see them doing that. So, we have the new protagonist, Marcel. He seems to know whenever the witches are practicing magic. In the backdoor pilot, we're completely left in the dark as to what that could possibly be. But in the director's cut, we're treated to a scene at the very end with this girl, Davina. She seems to be a very young vampire who is not allowed near open windows in the daylight, and she's kept up hidden in the attic. And one of Marcel's servants comes in and asks her to find out if any magic had happened today. And she says, I have not been able to sense anything. And she goes to look out the window again. She's told that she cannot. She throws this little temper tantrum where she says she hates the word can't. She's sick of it. And she literally uses magic to throw the servant out the window, slam the window shut. So it's revealed that she's actually some kind of witch.
Yeah.
Then in the first episode here, the one that just aired, that scene was completely changed. It starts off with her using magic to play with some candles at the very beginning. Marcel himself comes in to check on her. And Davina kind of shows that she's worried for Marcel. So the other version, I kind of get this impression that she was a captive. And in this version, it seems like she's protective of Marcel. And Marcel ensures her that he's going to be fine, especially with how powerful she is. So she doesn't seem to be a typical witch. What do you think she could possibly be?
Well, she's obviously got dark magic in her. She's more powerful than the average witch. Maybe she's, possibly she has better ties to easily do the magic called expression, which would, tie her into being more powerful. Or she's just, a typical young girl, and she's just, there's this really cute, hot guy that, likes me and he's taking care of me, and she's just easily manipulated into thinking that she's like a jewel in his life.
Could be something like Stockholm syndrome, where she was a
Yeah,
prisoner and now she's
exactly.
yeah. So I don't know, maybe because they're in the whole New Orleans setting, that maybe it could be tied something to do with voodoo magic, or I'm not quite sure. But there's definitely something a little more to her than what it appears to be. So Elijah had mentioned that the witches don't want Marcel killed, and they may have something, or he may have something that they want. So do you think that could be Davina herself?
I don't think they know what he has. Um, they want they obviously want to know how he knows when they're doing magic. So when they find out it is Davina, of course they're going to want her because she is a witch. She is one of their kind. She is a sister. But at this point, they have no idea what he has.
Right.
But they want it, of course, because they don't want him to have the upper hand anymore.
See, I was starting to think that maybe Davina was like a younger child of one of the witches that they knew that he had, and that's what they want. But the fact that if that was the case and they knew that he had her, then they would know exactly how he knows. And Marcel has gone out of his way to say that you don't know how I know, and it drives you crazy.
Yeah.
So that kind of throws my theory out the window. But we also, something I thought that was interesting with Elijah was he displays this telepathic power to project his memories into Haley, to kind of show her the past, what Klaus has been through, what the family has been through. And I haven't seen any of the other originals be able to use this power. I know, as you pointed out to me earlier, there was some dream manipulation and stuff that not only the originals can do, but vampires can do in general.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think all of the originals have this power of memory projecting, or do you think that each of them has kind of their own little gifts?
I think each of them has their own little gift because I think because Elijah is such a good talker, he likes to, talk his way through things. He likes to, manipulate with words. So he can easily project what his thoughts are or his memories into another person. Whereas, like, say, for Klaus, I think he's just super strong. Not only because he's a hybrid. If he was just a vampire, it'd just be, strength and speed. But yeah, but I think they're all, unique to their own bit just because of their personalities and the kind of people they are.
Right. So Elijah had spent a lot of time projecting these feelings and stuff to Haley to kind of show her where they came from. So now you have Haley, who's actually carrying Klaus's child. She herself was abandoned as a child. She's been through multiple foster families, and then when she finally thought she found one after her werewolf transformation happened, her foster family completely abandoned her. Do you think she's gonna make a good mother?
It's a tough one because it's not just a story. It's not just a story conflict anymore. It becomes, whether or not, there are a lot of people, a lot of single parents that have been abandoned in their past, and they take on children and they don't have anybody else, and so she can be, and maybe she will be, and she has the ability to be a good mother.
Yeah, but she's also gonna have to deal with the struggle that Klaus doesn't really want anything to do with the baby.
So it seems right now it might build up to where that's the only thing he cares about, and doesn't matter even if it's Haley, he's just gonna say no, not gonna happen. You can't get near this baby. It's mine. And he's kind of obsessive that way, so I think that might happen.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. So not only does Elijah spend a lot of time in this episode buddying up to Haley, he also is buddying up to the witches, he's buddying up to Klaus, and at the end of the episode, Klaus ends up detaining Elijah with one of the daggers. And due to Klaus not wanting, it's due to Klaus not wanting to have any weaknesses for Marcel to exploit. Do you think Elijah kind of spreads himself too thin and trusts people too easily, and that's kind of how he ended up in this predicament?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think he wants to see the best in people. He's one of those vampires where he's gonna do what he has to do to get what he wants, but he still looks for the good in everybody. And even if it's his brother Klaus, who has been raging for who knows how long, 500 years or something, a crazy amount of time.
So comparatively, if we had to compare this to the Vampire Diaries series, would you say that Elijah is Stefan and Klaus is Damon?
No.
They seem to have very similar traits.
They are similar, but the core levels, yeah, I guess. If you were looking at it as from a story standpoint, yeah, it would say it would look like Elijah is Stefan and Klaus is Damon, but Elijah and Klaus are way more intense in those respects.
Right. Yeah. Well, Klaus is extremely reckless. He's super jealous of Marcel, and it just seems like he's teaming up with the witches to dethrone Marcel for no other reason. Klaus is usually a one vampire killing machine, and why do you think he actually agreed to help the witches in the first place?
For his own personal gain. Because he just wants Marcel out of the picture, and he wants to take over. And if he has to team up with the witches to get what he wants, to make it seem like he's playing nice, so that he gets on the witches' side, like on their good side, and then takes them out too, I'm sure he'll do anything. If that's what his plans are in his head, he's gonna do it.
So don't you think he could actually do this without the witch's help, or do you think now that because the baby is thrown into this equation and it's another thing that might be why he's keeping his options open?
He's definitely keeping his options open, but if he works with the witches, that's something Marcel probably isn't going to expect from him. Marcel probably expects him to come at him straight on if he ever does, but it's like it's a backdooring thing. You hear about that all the time.
Yeah. So this is actually the first time we've seen Klaus's trigger to becoming a werewolf and the hybrid curse ritual itself to suppress his werewolf side. I didn't think there was really much left of the backstory from the Vampire Diaries that could carry over for Klaus, but apparently these little things like this have slipped through the cracks and reminded me that we actually haven't seen everything yet. What else are you looking forward to seeing in not only Klaus's, but the originals in general, their past?
Well, when were they turned? It was it was like 200 years before they left Europe. So there's that big gap there of them working through their curses, and obviously there's how Klaus felt after he was bound with his werewolf curse, so he wasn't a hybrid, and how he dealt with that, how everyone else dealt with that up to the point where they go to New Orleans. There's all of that. So, I mean, it would help form the characters better and give you a better idea of how they got to where they are right now.
Yeah, I'd like to see a little more between Klaus's mother and father. The betrayal, she obviously, they mentioned right at the beginning of the episode that Klaus is their half-brother. And they say he's an animal, and it's because his mother cheated on his father with a werewolf, and I'd like to see kind of the relationship between Klaus, his father, and the relationship between Klaus and his mother, and even the mother and the husband. Like I'd like to see and how everything kind of got to that point.
Yeah.
So, not only that, but there were a lot of scenes that were cut from the backdoor pilot. A lot of they cut all the direct references to the Vampire Diaries out. Other than Elijah mentioning that Klaus could always go back to Mystic Falls and be hated, do you think the show did well of standing alone without any of the Vampire Diary mythology?
There is a lot of backstory in New Orleans by itself. So, I mean, just to throw them in there and say, they're originals. They have a lot of story by themselves. They're not just the Vampire Diaries. That was a complete different tangent. This story is about them and them being New Orleans. There's a lot of ways they could go, and I don't know. I've never been to New Orleans, but I know that it's just got a lot there, right. And they can go so many ways as far as story goes.
Oh, they definitely can. I think they did a fairly good job of trying to explain things without dwelling too deep into their previous. And there's going to be other things that they could set up, like the originals, what their powers actually entail. Because as far as in terms of the originals itself, we don't really know how they're able to do some of the things they are. So Klaus, we mentioned. Elijah, we mentioned, has the memory projection. Klaus has, as they show in this, he has the ability to cure werewolf bites, and each of them kind of has their own thing. We don't know Rebecca if she even has anything, but it's definitely be interesting. But they even retcon some of the dialogue toward the end of the episode with Klaus saying that every king needs an heir, and he seems much more like he wanted the kid in that version, but they kind of retold the dialogue, made this seem like it was more of Elijah's idea, whereas the original in the backdoor pilot, it made it seem like when Klaus and Marcel got into the fight, that Marcel was actually the trigger behind Klaus's change of direction. So why do you think they chose to go with that switch, and which one of them did you prefer?
Well, I preferred, Klaus wanting to have the child, but that's just me. But as it stands, it's fine too, because then it's a little bit more daring. You don't know where they could go. I mean, as far as the pilot episode, the backdoor pilot, you knew he wanted the baby, and he was. It just seemed like he was going to do anything for it. But now it's just like it's up in the air. Everything is just kind of like you don't know what Klaus is capable of, and it keeps it open for a lot of ways for the story to go.
Yeah, I kind of preferred the way that it is now, because you almost have this redeeming story of Elijah and Klaus. Elijah's been working this whole time to bring Klaus back to family and all that, and then it seems like Elijah is the one that triggers it, and he has him on his side, and then Klaus just out of nowhere stabs him through the heart with a dagger, and you're like, what just happened? So it really caught me by surprise, and I think because of that extra scene that was added, it totally made this whole retelling a little bit better. I'm not usually a fan of them retconning anything in general, but this kind of worked a lot better. So
it kind of had to be done.
Yeah. Rebecca, she seemed completely disinterested every single time that Elijah had called her on the phone, tried to get her down there. It goes to the point where Rebecca refuses to pick up the phone at one point. So, what do you think is going to make Rebecca change her mind and actually come down to New Orleans?
Klaus killing Elijah. Well, killing, in parentheses.
Temporarily.
But, yeah. Just, kind of pushing him off to the side for a little bit. She's going to get pissed off about that. She seems like she's close to Elijah, and she's like, why would you do that when he's trying to help you? So she's gonna go and try to fix things so that Elijah comes back and Klaus isn't such a dick anymore.
Yeah. From what I understand, Rebecca will be joining up next episode. Read through the summary or whatever, but the title of the next episode is called House of the Rising Sun, S-O-N, which is a pun for House of the Rising Sun, S-U-N, which is a traditional folk song which tells of life gone wrong in New Orleans. What could this possibly be foreshadowing?
You had to do that. Foreshadowing. Probably just like, I think it'd be Haley, because, she has big decisions to make, and she's probably going to go about it the wrong way, and probably get herself into a bit of trouble. And since Klaus is the only one that is kind of there, we still don't really know about Rebecca, but since Klaus is just the only one there, he doesn't really care. So I think she's going to take things into her own hands, and she's going to get into trouble.
Yeah. Overall, I enjoyed this. I kind of actually like it a lot more than Vampire Diaries itself. It seems... It's very reminiscent of season 1 of the Vampire Diaries. It's very dark. So I hope they kind of keep it in this direction, where Vampire Diaries is... It's still a little dark, but it's gotten lighter, and I hope that they stay on this path. So,
yeah.
any other final thoughts on Marcel or anything?
No.
Inside joke. So, you guys can follow us on www.youtube.com/ASOTV podcast for more podcasts for some of your favorite TV shows. Umi, where can the people follow you?
Rebecca. I'm at Twitter at LadyVenom24, LadyVenom24.
At twitter.com.
At twitter.com.
Yes. Okay. So, until next week, see you guys later.